So let's begin with the next talk. We have I have with me Lars Michelsen. Lars is the very first employee of Checkup. It's basically the starting point of this whole company that we got together. It's more than 10 years ago, I think 11 or 12 years, something like that. Lars is the head of development and will be for a long time, I hope. How many developers do we have currently?
Roughly 20.
Roughly 20. It's really crazy.
Changes from day to day.
But all have lots of things to do. So we're really busy, and we have been busy, and we have heavily working on the Checkmk. Is it 2.0 or 2.0 or what is it?
2.0.
Checkmk 2. I say Checkmk 2.
2.0.
2.0. Okay.
Yeah.
So the 2.0 has brought many new features, and so today we speak about the presence. We speak about what you can actually do with Checkmk 2.0. Tomorrow will be about the great, bright future. But now let's stick to the facts. Everything we show you today is actually existing and working. And Lars will guide you through the highlights today.
That's right. So, hi from me. Happily, Matthias already said everything I wanted to say for the introduction. So then let's get started with the content. I will talk about Checkmk 2.0. Which was released as stable version 3 months ago. And we know that some of you already use it in production. Some of you may have already tried the free edition, and some of you may consider a migration. And as such, we found it useful to show all the changes we made to Checkmk with this version in a holistic view in one dedicated session. Obviously, we made a lot of changes in the details, but we cannot cover them all today because we want to show the major changes. And with that being said, let's start. As Jan just mentioned, these were the major topics of the 2.0. The biggest project was clearly the overhaul of the whole user interface. To make it easier to create automations and extensions with Checkmk, we created a completely new REST API. And we also reworked our most important programming API, the Check plugin API. And we believe it's key to integrate with the common tools of the monitoring and observability landscape. Therefore, we have expanded our extensions, our capabilities in cloud and container infrastructures. And the most important addition we made is the Prometheus connector. In part of network monitoring, we closed a strategic white space, namely the monitoring of network flows. We closed it by creating a new connector, the NTOP integration. We also worked a lot on the performance of Checkmk in different areas, in the user interface, but also in the backend. And we made Checkmk to consume significantly less resources than before. Checkmk now comes with an engine to calculate the future of metrics based on the already recorded versions, which we called predicting metrics. Yeah.
Predicting the future.
Predicting the future of metrics. That's the key. So let's dive into the biggest topic, the user experience of Checkmk. We approached this topic from top down by first looking at the navigation of Checkmk and the dashboards. First, let's have a look at the new dashboards. When you open up the user interface of Checkmk, the face of Checkmk is the main dashboard. And that's what we changed for Checkmk 2.0. This dashboard not only needs to be fancy, but obviously also has to be useful. And what we learned during the conception of the new dashboard is that we have different use cases. Different user groups have different needs. And so we learned in our user surveys that 40% of our users want to have a broad overview on the monitored systems. They don't care about the nitty-gritty service states and so on. They want to have some high-level numbers giving you an idea how the monitoring is working and how your infrastructure is looking like at the moment. And this is for what we built the new main dashboard. What you can see on this main dashboard is the high-level metrics about how many services and hosts you currently have, in which state they currently are, and besides that, you see some historical information on the history of the service states or host states in your system. In the third line, you see one element which shows you the number of notifications that has been sent by Checkmk in the past hours. Next to it, you see one element that gives you an idea how good your monitoring health is. It shows you the number of service problems compared to the full number of services in your installation. And you can even combine this, compare this metric with other monitoring environments to get an idea how good your monitoring is configured.
So I hope it's better than this one, because here we have 10% of problems.
Yeah, that's not pretty good. But yeah, maybe an interesting idea. If you like, you can, if you're already using Checkmk 2.0 and you have this dashboard, then you may post your number and then compare it to other users as some kind of competition. Feel free to do this.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, and in the bottom line, you see the host overview element, which shows you in this mode, there's just a single site in this setup. It shows you one hexagon per host. And besides that, you see the top alerters of your installation of the last 7 days. So if you want to track down systems which are flapping, which produce a lot of notifications, you could really use this element to get an idea where to fix your problems in the first place. Now we see some other kind of main dashboard. This is opened or shown to you in the moment you have a distributed setup of Checkmk. And what has changed here is the bottom left element. It is now not showing your host, it's showing the sites you have configured. There's one hexagon per site, and yeah, it reflects the state of the host and services in that site, and gives you an idea by the size of the hexagons, how many hosts and services are monitored by these sites. If you click on such an hexagon, you're redirected to a site-specific dashboard, which shows you the state of the host and services monitored by that site. About 60% of our surveyed users are interested in the nitty-gritty details, in actual service problems, host problems, the things they have to care about, the problems they have to solve. So we kept the dashboard we had previously in Checkmk, slightly redesigned it, and then now use it as a problem dashboard. And for the Checkmk administrator, you're obviously interested in the health of Checkmk itself. And for this use case, we have the Checkmk health dashboard, which in the first element shows you the state of your Checkmk service with the performance indicators for these servers. And below that, you see one line per site in your environment, together with the performance indicators of these sites and the current states of the services that are running in a Checkmk site. So now we have 3 types of dashboards which we provide as main dashboard. And depending on which dashboard you're interested in, you may open the one or the other. To switch between these dashboards, we provide you with 3 buttons at the top bar, the in-page navigation, where you can cycle between these different dashboards. And from the dashboard menu, you can choose your personal start dashboard. You can simply click on make this my main dashboard, and then it will automatically open up in the moment you access the Checkmk user interface. Now let's have a look at the different types of visualizations we've added to Checkmk. The ones of you who previously participated in the tech talk of Marcel and Matthias may already know these elements, but for the rest of you, I want to go through these elements in detail. What we see here is the host overview dashboard, which represents the element, which represents one hexagon per host. If such a hexagon is filled with a color, it shows a host state. If it's blue, it shows a host in downtime. If it's red, the host is down or unreachable. The colored border shows you that the host is up, but there's some service problem on that host. And the thickness of these borders shows you how many services of the services on the host are in a problem state. If you hover over a host element, you get more details about that host. The next element is the bar plot element, which is useful for comparing metrics of the same type. For example, showing you the file systems of multiple Linux hosts. And the next element, the average scatter plot element, is also useful for comparing similar metrics, but is also looking on the history of these metrics. It compares similar metrics over time. For example, the CPU load of multiple Linux hosts can be compared, like you see here in that screenshot. It is useful for spotting outliers, some metrics which are very high or very low. At any time, one dot is displayed per metric you visualize in this element. And the lines you see here are representing the mean and median lines across the single metrics. You can even hover this element, and then you see the value of this data point you focused, or the values of the other points at that time. For those, visualizing high-level metrics is also very important when building your own top-level dashboards. We have now added several ways of displaying these single metrics. The first one is the gauge. The top left element is the simple gauge you can configure. It just shows the current value, and then the area around it. It focuses on the current value of that metric. The second one at the top, you see there's something above the gauge, which gives you an idea of the history of this metric. By default, the whole gauge is showing the values of the last day. And if you see the bars like in this second element, you can think about it like this, like the values we have captured so far over the current day were in this area, like maybe 35, 40% or something like this. And you can see that the current value is very next to it. So you can understand that the current value is pretty normal, maybe. The third element shows, besides the current metric, the state of the underlying service. Because you may not only be interested in the single metric, but you also want to see the state of the service. Because the service may be in a problematic state, while the metric you look at is still okay. And you have two different visualization options. In the second row, we see the single metric element, which also, in the simplest configuration, shows you the current value of the metric. But you can also add the history to this element. In this element, it shows a graph in the background of the single metric. And you may recognize the numbers at the left of the element, which give you an idea of the scale of the graph which is showing in the background. And we can also see the state of the service showing up if you want to display that. We have also worked on making your own dashboards building easier. When you try to build your own dashboard, you basically start by adding a new dashboard, then you add your first element, drag it to some position where you like it, and then you may resize it. And in this manual mode, you have the disadvantage that the dashboard is not resizing with different screen or browser sizes. So we also have an automatic mode where the the dashboard elements, how we call them now, can automatically be sized for fitting different screen resolutions. That algorithms haven't changed with the new version, but we made it more intuitive to work with the dashboard editing. We also added the in-page navigation to the top of the dashboard, so it's same in the dashboard editor as on all other pages of Checkmk now. We've also made it easier to configure dashboard elements. Like here, we see the edit dialog of the single metric dashboard element. And what we've done here is that we put the context into the input elements. If you select one host, and then you want to select the service on that host, you only get the service list of that host. And if you, in the next step, select a metric, you only get the metrics to select which are available for the selected service, which makes it easier to configure these kind of dashboard elements. Another thing is we worked on is making dashboards more context sensitive. If you have, for example, multiple Linux hosts and you want to create a dashboard for all these Linux hosts, previously you had to create one dashboard and then copy it over and over and then put the context, the host name of these Linux hosts to each of these copied dashboards. And in the first moment, that may be easy, but if you have to change something in your dashboard, it's a step you have to repeat over and over. So what we did now is that we made it possible for the dashboards to be filtered individually according to your needs. So if you want to create a host-specific dashboard, you have the option to provide the host filter in the moment you view the dashboard, not in the moment the dashboard is configured. So the users are free to select a host which is working for this dashboard. And you can also bookmark these dashboards you have filtered to reuse it later. The exact same filter mechanism is also possible in our status views. Previously, the filters had to be pre-configured by the one who creates the view or manages the view. He had to pre-select the filters you can choose as viewer. Now it's possible to select basically any possible filter for being able to filter the view in the moment you need to filter it in some way. The dashboard engine I just showed you with the automatic sizing, the improvements in usability is available in all editions of Checkmk. The new dashboard elements I just showed you are only available in the Enterprise Edition. However, we always also invest in the modernization of the Raw Edition. And we did that especially in the metric area. We made the Grafana connector, which we built in the 1.6, available also for the Raw Edition users. And the graphing engine, which is included with Checkmk, in the 1.6, it felt a bit like legacy because it created static images, it was not interactive, and so on. And what we did with the 2.0 is that we ported our Checkmk Enterprise graphing system to the raw edition. We ported the parts which were previously realized by the PNP for Nagios graphing system. And now you have the same type of graphs in the raw edition and the enterprise editions. Okay, so this concludes the changes we've made to the dashboarding so far. And we are planning to take this even further, add new kind of elements, improve the elements we added. We also heard about the bar plot dashlet that sorting things is a good idea.
Yes.
And I think it's a pretty good idea to build that into Chickenplay. Now, I'd like to go to the navigation part of the user experience. Yeah, we dramatically changed our navigation concept with Checkmk 2.0. You now have one navigation bar at the left side of the user interface, and it basically consists of 3 elements. We have 3 topics in the Checkmk user interface. The monitor menu brings you to the state information. The customize menu brings you to the user interface elements you have customized for your own or for other users. And the setup menu brings you to the Checkmk configuration. And for the content of the menus, we decided to build mega menus. The advantage of the mega menus is that you can have a lot of content in these menus without the need to scroll. So we can have a large number of menu points which help you to browse through Checkmk. And what we have in this menu now is, at first, the search element. This search is not only a filter through the menu entries you see here, but it's also a search through the whole monitoring you have in your Checkmk core. It's basically realized like the quick search you may already know from the Checkmk 1.6. Another element you see on the top right is the Show More button, which is working here for toggling menu entries. The idea of these Show More, or the other one, the Show Less button, is to, in the first place, provide just a small basic number of menu entries you need as a basic user at the start. During discussions with users, we learned that most users at the beginning want to have a very basic set of features, like adding hosts, discovering service, activating changes, and so on, and then viewing them. And they often get confused by all the options Checkmk has. So we decided to add the Show More and Less buttons. And in the beginning, if you set up a new site, you see basically the basic features of Checkmk. But if you are interested always in the advanced topics and you don't want to toggle these topics over and over, you can also configure this as a default for you personally to show in all pages the information that is shown if you click on Show More. This feature is not visible only here, but we see it over and over again in all parts of the user interface. That's for the monitor menu. Now let's have a look at the setup menu, which is also reworked with 2.0. And it comes with a very powerful feature which improves the workflows of configuring Checkmk. It's the setup search. With the setup search, you can now search your complete Checkmk configuration. And it dramatically changes the way you can work with the configuration, because you don't have to go multiple layers deep into your Checkmk configuration GUI, but if you use the right term, you can enter your search term, and then you can directly access, for example, rule sets or rules or host pages, whatever you want to configure. Now, we have the sidebar, which you already know from Checkmk, is still in Checkmk 2.0. It's still in place. Previously, we used this sidebar as combination of navigation and status overview. We have the tactical overview, and we also have some navigation elements. Now, with the new UX concept, we understand this more as a status overview element. You can add there elements which you always want to see, like the tactical overview or some specific status elements you are always interested in, independent of the content you're currently browsing. And there are even navigation elements left, which are only usable with that sidebar or status bar. It's, for example, the folder tree snap-in, which some of you may use. We will also consider reworking these features to integrate in the new UX concept, but that's the state so far. The next big element we changed is the context-sensitive in-page navigation. It's an element you can find on all of your Checkmk content pages. It's the same for every page. And this element always reacts to the content you show in your page. For example, in this slide, you see a service detail page where you have multiple rows of services. And for these services, you have some operating actions, like acknowledging problems, setting downtimes, or whatever. Then you have, because that's a detail page of a host, you have also the host menu, which you can use to get to other host-related pages. You have the services menu, which brings to other service list pages you may want to use. And what you can also see in this screenshot is the small image with the 3 dots, which is again toggling menu entries. It shows more entries or less entries, depending on your needs. Now that's it for the navigation. And let's have a look at different other topics we changed. The labels were introduced with Checkmk 1.6. Checkmk had a similar concept for a long time, the tags which were organized in tag groups, but they always have to be predefined by an administrator. In contrast, the labels can be defined at any place where you configure or assign labels to objects, like assigning them to host, for example. Labels can even be discovered. So using check plugins, you can discover labels for your host, but also for your services, which are being discovered. They were becoming a popular feature in 1.6, so we extended that further. Based on data from agents and SNMP, we can now discover OS families and device types. And we also added more discovery mechanisms. Imagine you have a huge IT infrastructure with a large number of network interfaces. Then you may want to organize these network interfaces. And what it did to help you is that we added the ability to add discovered service labels to your discovered network interfaces. Another rule we extended with labels is the process discovery. And you can use it to mark your hosts based on the discovered processes. For example, if you find an Apache process or Nginx on one of your servers, you can label this as a web server automatically in the moment it is discovered. And yet then, based on this information, you may change the configuration or the notification contacts and so on. And also, the use of labels has been extended. You can use the labels now as conditions in the notification system. And even on the command line for bulk discoveries, you now have an option to do these on the command line. And for the tags, which are widely used still, not replaced by labels, we have added the Analyze Usage page, which helps you to understand the use of tags. If you want to, for example, restructure your tag configuration, you may use this page to get an idea where the tag is used in your system. And on the service discovery page, we also added some features related to the labels. We made it possible for you to get a better understanding of the label discovery, whether or not a label has currently been discovered, whether or not a label has been removed, and so on, is now visible on this page. We also extended the Fix All feature, which were previously only caring about the discovered services. It now combines the service discovery and the label discovery. If you click on the Fix All button, you acknowledge all the changes which have been made to services and labels combined. We know that all these changes I just showed you are have a huge impact on all of you, on all of Checkmk users. And we really invested a lot of time. We spoke to users, we had discussions, discussed different concepts, and so on. And we're pretty happy to see that the surveys are very good for these changes. And we hope that we continue this journey with these results. And want to thank you at this place for all your feedback and surveys and mails.
Yeah, and also we have some active participation in this presentation because we have some questions.
Nice.
And I pick out a couple of questions that have to do with the actual topic, with the current state of Checkmk. There are a couple of questions which are about the future. I will happily postpone this to tomorrow because tomorrow is all about the future and feature requests and so on. So the questions will probably not be deleted, but answered tomorrow. but the actual Checkmk version, there's one question. When upgrading from 1.6 to 2.0, will previously created dashboards be migrated? Can I still use them, or what's the state about that?
Yeah, it depends a bit on the things you configured, but basically they should be usable. Yeah.
Can it crash somehow? If I run into if I have a dashboard that uses some fancy stuff that has changed, will I notice it, or?
You will obviously visually notice it that it's not working.
I will get an error and then I fix it, or?
Yes, but I'm not aware of problems in this area. So there are a lot of users building dashboards out there, and we always build these migration mechanisms to make it as seamless as possible for you.
So it should simply work.
Yeah, there may be problems in the detail, but normally we announce that it is incompatible change. Yeah, okay. And you should have a look at it anyway. So if you see something in the area of dashboarding or dashboard elements, it's normally described what is changing, and then you can understand whether or not it affects you or not.
Okay, perfect. Then there's a question. It's a bit about the future. Someone is in the 2.0 menu is still missing points like Nugwiz. What's it? Because someone, I'm not sure if everyone knows that Lars himself is the creator of Nugwiz, the graphical visualization tool where you can put your maps and graphs and stuff like that as a background for status information. What about the Nugwiz integration in Checkmk? How has it changed? How's the state?
That's a strategic question. And even if I'm the maintainer of Nugwiz, I cannot decide it on my own here. Nugwiz is with Checkmk for a lot of years, and I know a lot of installations out there which are heavily using Nugwiz. So it will be there for them to use. And if Checkmk continues to feature Nugwiz, or maybe builds some features right in Checkmk where it can
Yeah.
be better integrated. I have not any news about that. So for the moment, nothing would change.
It
and
still works, but I think
it's
that
working.
I can remember this sidebar snap-in where you can select the
Yeah.
NUG with maps. Is this also available in the monitor menu?
No, but would be a good idea to add this.
This would be maybe a good idea
Yeah.
for 2.0 in order to get rid of the snap-ins for navigation.
Yeah,
And
yeah. That's one navigation snap-in which has not been
Yeah.
replaced in the new
shouldn't be
UX.
too hard to make it properly. Then there's a question, will the current 1.6 customized reports, will they need rework for 20.0? I think for the version 20 of Checkmk, probably yes. But I guess it's a typo, so for the 2.0, what about the state of the
No.
reporting?
No, that's, they should all work. We have made some changes to the reporting, but these are additional features which you have to enable or fixes in the existing features.
Then the most asked question of all time is something about the future or maybe about the present. I stated about the present because then it fits to your... Where is the Raspberry Pi version of Checkmk?
Officially, I don't think we will build one.
But someone said there is one.
Yeah,
so
there is one, and someone is continuously working on building packages for the Raspberry Pi. From my experience, the Raspberry Pi systems, even with the newest version of these boards,
Yeah.
are way too lightweight. So if you're working on your own in some small environment, like with like 10 target systems, and
like
you're
monitoring beehives.
and maybe monitoring beehives or something like
Yeah.
that, and you're the only one opening the user interface, that may be fine. But in the moment you're working a bit more with this system, you will be much happier using some small Intel NUC system, for example.
Yeah.
It's not that expensive, and it will be worth it.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. There are some questions, actually not about this talk in general, but because they are voted so high, I will say a few words to it. The one question is, will the presentations be available on the Chickenplay YouTube channel? The answer is, of course, yes. All the presentations will be available shortly after the conference. The recording of the two tech sessions will be made public a couple of time later. It's not clear, maybe a couple of weeks or months, but at the end, everyone will be able to see them.
Before the next conference.
Way before the next conference. And then there's a question about the presentation slides. I guess we will publish the slides. Chris, where will we publish the slides? On the website? Yeah, we will announce that, so you have access to the slides in case you want to read the details yourself. Then there's a similar question about the workshops. This morning we did workshops, and tomorrow there will be some workshops more, but I don't think we have any recording of the workshops. These are smaller groups. It was interactive via Zoom, so it has not been recorded. It's like a training class.
However, if you want to learn how to develop check plugins, then you can do this with us in our trainings. Maybe.
Yeah, we have due to the corona situation, we have switched many trainings to online format. The classroom trainings, which were located mainly in Germany, are now available online, and we have more and more participants around the world, and also offer English training. So this is a good way to learn Checkmk without even after this conference.
So, shall we continue?
Then there's a question, labels, how about inventory? Let's guess what this should mean, probably. Say something about labels and inventory.
Inventory. Okay, so before we introduced labels, we continuously received the idea that the inventory has already some information about the host. It knows some details about that host and so on, and we might use the inventory for creating labels or something. And from an architectural point, that's not a good idea because that would also create some hen and egg problem.
Yes.
Because you use rules and rule sets to enable the inventory, then you may have inventory data or you may not if the inventory data is not available at the moment. Then you have maybe caching involved and so on. And then you might create some label out of these inventory information, and that is a bit too unreliable, I think.
Yes.
But what we are currently already doing is that in the moment we realize for the inventory we have some data source, then we can also use this data source for label discovery.
Yes.
Maybe the OS family or something like that is based on the same data source.
So we basically changed the technical way of how to get the labels out of the agent data.
Yeah.
Then there's a question about BI. We haven't talked about BI yet. Are there some significant changes to BI? Will you talk about them later? Or?
I think I should continue, and then I can say
so
at least a little bit about BI.
Okay, so I pick out one last question for now. Is it a good practice to run ntop ng, nprobe, and checkmk on the same single server? Have you spoken about the ntop integration? Jan mentioned it, that we have integrated with the network management system. You will
I will talk about that, but not on how to set up this in detail.
Yeah.
But I think in general it is good to separate these systems for maintenance reasons and so on. Maybe put it on two servers next to each other, and then you can upgrade them independent of each other.
But this is no real best practice from your experience. It's just an estimation.
If I would set up this, I would set up it like this.
Okay. This is sufficient for me.
Yeah, good.
Okay, so let's continue with the talk for a couple of minutes more, and then we make a short break.
Okay, so let's continue with the next topic. Let's dive into more internal or technical topics. Let's have a look at what we did for automating Chickenplay. With 2.0, we completely built a new API from scratch, a REST API, which is currently the gold standard for web-based APIs. And it supports you when you want to automate things with Checkmk, automatically setups of Checkmk or configuration tasks and so on. And we built that with best practices in mind when it comes to API design and web API design. A good practice for building web APIs is generating documentation, for example, out of the implementation. We have one single point of truth, the implementation. And based on that, we create an online documentation which is available in every Checkmk site. So if you look at the documentation in your site, you always see the state of your site reflected. You see the features the API has, you see the parameters and the responses. And in the documentation, you have descriptions on all the individual arguments, parameters, and so on. You even have implementation examples, which you can copy and paste onto your system. Then you need to add some credentials maybe, and then you can try these calls for getting started with that API. And then you can extend these examples to fit your actual need, the thing you want to build with the API. The new REST API aims to replace the already existing web API. And as you can see on the slide here, we have replaced most of the existing features and even extended existing functionality or added completely new functionality. However, two parts are missing: configuring rules and rule sets with the API and managing site connections for your central site. This will be added with the 2.1, and I'll talk about that tomorrow. The new things we added is working with state information from your monitoring. Previously, the previous existing API was only there for configuring Checkmk. And the new REST API also supports working with the states from your monitoring core. It can display you information out of the core, current states of services and hosts, detailed information. And you can also execute operating actions on your services and hosts. You can acknowledge problems, you can create downtimes, and work with the monitoring like you do in the user interface when you're doing operating. And that's the thing for business intelligence I just talked about. The REST API has been extended to support business intelligence configurations. So you can configure your whole BI using the REST API, and you can also display the state information of your business intelligence aggregations.
I hope we haven't opened the box of Pandora. I have some users in mind that immediately go and write a script that creates 10,000 of BI BI aggregations,
yes,
and then run into very strange performance problems maybe. So
hopefully not.
Use it wise and use it with thought and test it, because all automation can open completely new performance problems, because, for example, instead of one generic rule, you simply create one rule per host, and you end up with 5,000 rules, and you open new dimensions in which Checkmk might not yet scale perfectly. So
yeah, but
it's not always a good idea to leave the rule-based system and go to a service-based system or host-based system for your configuration.
That's not a specific issue for the API. It's the same scaling problems if you would configure it manually.
But you wouldn't configure 10,000 aggregations manually. But with the API, it's much easier. So
we have one customer which is configuring his BI completely automatically based on the service model from his Cmdb.
Can completely make sense. So I'm not against it.
Very interesting.
I'm just looking forward to the new things where we need to scale into. Okay.
We will solve it in the moment.
Yeah, we will solve it, of course. We will deal with the 10,000 aggregations.
Okay, so that's it for the REST API for the moment. Now let's have a look at the extensibility of Checkmk. Another API we have completely reworked with the 2.0 is the Check plugin API. It's the most important plugin API of Checkmk. You use it in the moment you want to monitor a device which is not yet built into Checkmk. In the moment you want to extend the monitoring capabilities of Checkmk. And what we learned here over the years, that the API we were previously using has never been designed top-down. It just happened. And
it was never be meant to be an API in the first place.
But it worked. So yes, it was possible to work with it, but it had a lot of inconsistencies. You needed a lot of implicit knowledge to build checks in an efficient way. We had problems with redundancies, with implicit dependencies between different check files and includes and so on. And we learned that with such a popular, important API, we have to build something different to be able to manage a huge number of check plugins. Because we on our own already manage like 2,000 check plugins in Checkmk. We create them as part of our core product, and we also maintain them as part of our core product. So to make it possible for us to sustain that for maybe the next 2,000 plugins, we had to rework this. And that's what we did for the 2.0. And we redesigned it with all the requirements we are now aware of, which the requirements which are needed to build check plugins for Checkmk as we currently need them.
Yeah, after writing 2,000 plugins, you get smarter. You get some experience in how the API should be designed to be easy.
At least a little bit.
And I guess the next 2,000 check plugins won't give so much new insight into the API. So I think we have a really good state now.
Yeah, absolutely. So we did the rebuild with best practices of API design in mind. Things have to be clear. They have to be explicit. you want to be able to execute your check plugins standalone without the need to spin up a whole Checkmk environment. You want to write unit tests. You want to be able to use your development tools. And that everything is possible with the new API. What we also offer now with the new Check API is like the REST API, we have an online documentation shipped with Checkmk. So in your Checkmk site, you can go to the navigation bar, open the help menu, and then open the plugin API. And what you will see here are the supported versions of the plugin API. And you see the different functions you have available, the parameters, and so on. You always have the API reference with you in your Checkmk site. And what we were previously also missing was a good description on how to build good check plugins.
Yeah, it was good, but it was quite outdated. It reflected the state of Checkmk 8 years ago. So
yeah, maybe 8 years ago it was maybe good.
That was perfect, but now it's up to date, and I think it's really good.
Yeah. Yes.
Just one thing I want to add here. If we talk about new API, it's not completely different. In fact, it's very similar. So if you have written your own check plugins, and the things you need to change for the new API are fairly few. So don't panic. It's just a few adaptations you need when the registration of a new plugin, for example, has changed. But the actual coding for check is in general unchanged. So it won't be so much work for you to adapt your plugins to the new API. Just to make it to make it clear that you don't need to panic.
That's right. So what we added with the new user manual article is a simple article which helps you to get started easily. It starts with the basic check implementation and then adds additional features one by one. And yeah, if you are migrating your existing check plugins, the ones Matthias just mentioned, then we have done different things to support you. At first, we added some compatibility layer, which makes it easy for you to continue using your check plugins in the moment they are compatible. There are some features which are not compatible. In this case, you will have to migrate these plugins. But most of the plugins can seamlessly be run with Checkmk 2.0. But you may want to migrate them for some reason. Maybe you want to extend your check plugins, or you want to use features that are only available with the new Check API. Then we have created an article in our user manual which helps you to migrate your plugins. It guides you through the single steps which are needed.
Until when is the old API supported? Which Chickenplay version will drop it? Or will it?
I think it's not decided yet, but from the fact that we, with our 2000 check plugins, haven't migrated the most of them, it will need time to make this transition.
It's more a thing of years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So speaking about the web API, the REST API, this will happen faster, the change, that we drop the old API. But for the check plugin API, we know that there are a lot of plugins out there and which are not continuously maintained. They are there and they are working, and we will support that they work for different years.
So it's a matter of decades now that it will be dropped.
Yeah, maybe.
Can be dropped any decade now. Okay.
So for us, it's good to have this compatibility layer because we can then simply keep it aside, and we have tests for it, and we can ensure that this still works. And when we maintain our software, can be happy with the new APIs.
And how many plugins do we need to migrate yet from the 2000? 1,900?
1,000 something.
Okay.
There's still a lot of work. Yeah. But that will be done any decade now. Yeah. Okay, so that's it for the plugin API, for the Check API. Let's have a look at integrations. Yeah, most of you don't work with a single monitoring tool. You have Checkmk for your operations monitoring, for alerting, for notifications, escalations, and so on. But there are also specific tools for different use cases, like network monitoring tools, database detail monitoring tools, or something like that. And our goal is to provide seamless integrations of Checkmk and other tools. With the 2.0, we added 2 main integrations. For network monitoring, we added the NTOP integration, which enables you to do deep network monitoring and look at the data right from your Chickenplay user interface. Secondly, we added the Prometheus integration, which enables you to process metrics from Kubernetes, from Prometheus, and have them as metrics and states in Checkmk. So let's have a look at the NTOP integration we built. Probably all of you are monitoring your networks. You're doing it with Checkmk, and some of you may even select Checkmk for the purpose of network monitoring. So Checkmk is a good network monitoring tool on its own. But sometimes you want to have a deeper look. You want to have a look at individual network flows between different systems to understand your network traffic, to understand maybe bottlenecks in your network, which is one of the most important use cases for looking deeper in your network. And here comes the tool NTOP, which solves these problems, which understands the network detail information, the network flows, and gives you a view on the flows which are made in your network. And we've worked together with the NTOP team to create a very deep integration of the NTOP data into Checkmk. The NTOP integration is available as paid addition to the enterprise edition of Checkmk. And when we look at the following slides now, we look at the high-level dashboard we offer and some host-specific dashboards. Now let's look at the one of the most important dashboards we have, the Top Talkers dashboard. This dashboard helps you to understand the top network traffic producers in your network. On the top left, you see a list of top local talkers, your systems which are making the traffic. Below that, you see the top destinations, the target systems the traffic is going to. And besides that, you see some graphs split by protocols, which give you an idea if you currently experience a spike or if your traffic ramped up or something like that. Then you have the host detail views, which show NTOP data. You can navigate to this by opening up a host detail page in Checkmk. And if it's a host which is also known to NTOP, you get a new icon displayed, a small n, which opens up this page. The page we currently see is the top-level page of NTOP for a single host. It shows you some high-level metrics like how much traffic is made in summary, how many flows is the host involved in, and maybe also how many engaged alerts we have. The NTOP pages, the different NTOP pages of a host are organized in a tabbed navigation you can see here. And if you look at another tab, the traffic tab, you see the traffic split by protocols and directions. On the next page, the ports page, you can see the traffic of different network ports the host is involved in, as client and as server. Then you can see the peers of the host you currently look at, the ones the host is communicating with, and you see the peers ordered by the amount of traffic they make. In NTOP, you can configure alerts which are triggered in case some threshold is reached. The host is having more than X flows, or a single flow has some amount of traffic, or a port has some amount of traffic maybe. And then once the thresholds are reached, NTOP creates alerts, triggered alerts. These are the ones you can see here. You can filter it with the element on the top if you want to look at a specific time range. This page shows you the network flows for your entire network. You can use the elements at the top of the page to filter the flows according to your needs. You can have a very detailed view at the network flows. And that's what I wanted to show you now for NTOP. And now we have a look at the second extension we made, the Prometheus connector.
Or we make a short break now.
That
I
is
guess
also something we can do.
Yeah, let's make a short break of just, let's say, where's the camera, the right one? Let's take this one. Let's make 5 minutes break. You can get a cup of coffee. We can get a cup of coffee. The session will stay running, so we just mute our sound. Don't be confused. We'll continue in 5 minutes.
All right.
Sorry, dass ich jetzt so reingehauen habe. Ich glaube, ich hätte es vergessen. Du hast weitergemacht bis zum Ende.
Das ist doch gut.
Ihr seid nicht gemutet.
Ich habe mich gemutet.
Ja, du hast gemutet. Okay, gut.
Dann mute uns. Der Chris ist nicht da. Da gibt es einen Schieber oben, da kannst du dich muten. Hier so.
Okay, so here we are again.
We were again. Please switch in camera, whatever. Let's continue. So, I hope you got a coffee. Small break.
Okay, so
Let's have a look at the Prometheus integration.
Prometheus, maybe.
Prometheus,
Yeah.
Prometheus.
Okay. If you look at the reality of many companies today, you will find a gap between different teams, between the ones who maybe do more development, who have adopted Prometheus together with the Kubernetes environment. And you have the operations team, which monitors the whole complex infrastructure of the organization. And what we wanted to do with the Prometheus integration is to bring these worlds together, to make it possible to integrate the information which is captured by Prometheus for the specific environment, to make this data available in Checkmk as services and metrics. The Prometheus integration is not limited to Kubernetes use cases. Prometheus can also capture a lot of other types of metrics which can be processed by Checkmk. The Prometheus integration can be split into two areas. We have the standard metrics, which are captured by Prometheus, for example, from the C-advisor, from the node exporter, or from kube state metrics. For these metrics, we have standard plugins in Checkmk, standard check plugins, which will care about automatic discovery in the moments you have these metrics imported to Checkmk. We also have the second part of the Prometheus integration. It's a part which can be configured to gather individual metrics from Prometheus, maybe also aggregated metrics using PromQL queries, which will then end up as metrics in Checkmk. And you can use it for alarming, for notifications, for availability analytics, for SLAs, and so on. You have all the features of Checkmk with the information you get from Prometheus. We also talked to users about the existing integration we first introduced with the 1.6 feature pack, and we improved the integration in detail. We added better HTTP support, better proxy support, better support for Kubernetes namespaces. And yeah, now it's included out of the box in Checkmk 2.0. Besides that, we are also working on a lot of different integrations. If you want, you can understand every check plugin we build as an integration, as a connection to another system Checkmk can talk to and get monitoring information from. And now we are nearly at 2,000 plugins we maintain with Checkmk. And these are the plugins we maintain. There are a lot of plugins out there. You as users, community members, partners are creating and maintaining also on the Checkmk exchange. Now let's have a look at some highlights, some examples we've built into Checkmk in this area. The most asked feature on the last conference was the integration of the Proxmox VE systems. What you can now monitor with Checkmk is the nodes of Proxmox VE and VMs. And from them, you can fetch disk usage metrics, memory usage, and also backup states. We also extended the capabilities of cloud and container monitoring, mostly in the area of AWS services. And besides that, we continuously build a lot of other plugins we cannot all highlight here. If you're interested in the list of integrations we have, in the list of check plugins, you can navigate on our website to Product Checkmk Integrations. And now let's have a look at some performance-related changes we made. we made a lot of changes to Checkmk, especially in the configuration of Checkmk. If you have large systems, if you have a huge number of folders and so on, you will find a better performing system with the 2.0. But the most important change in terms of performance was the rework of the architecture of the monitoring core, the helper architecture. We made it more memory efficient. And now, careful, it gets a little bit more technical.
Yes, I like it. Finally.
Okay, so let's start at a higher level. What's the major task of the monitoring core? It is fetching information from your systems and then calculating check results out of it. Health information, metric information. And yeah, we can understand this as fetching. I get the health, the information from the device, and checking. I interpret the information to calculate service check results. In the architecture of the monitoring core of the microcore, we had in the 1.6. This was done or realized by a helper pool, a pool of helper processes, the Checkmk helpers. And they were performing these tasks in a single helper process, fetching information and checking. And at a time, each helper can only handle a single host. And in the moment a helper is waiting for a response from the monitored device, it waits, and in the time it waits, it consumes a decent amount of memory. And because that single process consumes memory while it is waiting, this is not as efficient as it could be.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't consume memory because it's waiting. It
While
just
it's-
always consumes memory.
Yeah.
And while it's waiting, that
Yeah.
memory is not effectively used. And you need more helpers because some of them are currently waiting.
Yeah, it worse in case of network hiccups or something like
Yeah.
that. You get load spikes because much more processes are waiting.
Yeah, you need more helpers to get all your checks to be done because some helpers need to wait for the hosts.
That's right. Huh?
And that's a problem. That was the problem.
That's right. So we learned that it would or could be a good idea to split these tasks. And this is what we did with the 2.0. We changed the architecture. We changed the helper processes. We split them up by these tasks. We now have a pool of fetcher processes, which just need to contact the target system to get the data for monitoring. And to be able to contact these devices, you only need a small extract, a small optimized part of the Checkmk configuration. You need the host address, maybe some network port, maybe credentials, and then you can contact the target device to get your monitoring information. And because you only need a small configuration part, you need only a small memory footprint for this process. And because that now consumes a small amount of memory, it's no problem to have a lot of these processes, which may block, which may wait while until they get the response from the network.
Yeah, so we still have waiting processes, but they're so small that it doesn't really matter how many you have.
Yeah, that's right. And for the second task, we have the checker processes, which still consume nearly the same amount as before. Because for the checking part, for interpreting the data, you need to understand more details of the Checkmk configuration. You need the thresholds and other parameters to get the configuration right, and then you get the information which have previously been fetched from by the fetcher, and then you can rapidly calculate the service check results and forward them to the monitoring core. This process is very fast, so it's no problem if the process who computes it consumes more memory. You don't need that many processes of these checkers because they can compute the service check results very fast.
I think there's a simple rule of thumb. If you have, say, 8 CPU cores, it doesn't make sense to have more than 8 helpers because each helper can use one core and the helpers have no wait states anymore.
Yeah.
So if you would create 9 helpers and have 8 cores, then 1 helper will wait for CPU anyway and waste memory. So that's a kind of upper limit, I guess. The number of helpers shouldn't be bigger than the number of processors, of course, that you have.
Maybe
Isn't that
some rule of thumb.
Probably even less because you have other tasks also to do.
Yeah.
But it's, I think, a basic rule of thumb. It won't speed up your system if you make more and more of the checkers now.
Yeah. In terms of understanding your performance, you as Checkmk administrator, you now have to care about 2 helper pools and their sizes. So you have to scale each of these pools manually at the moment. Maybe not in the future anymore, but for the 2.0, it's like that. You have to somehow scale these worker pools. And the best is to perform your upgrade from the 1.6 maybe, or set up your new system, and then to have a look at some key metrics. You have to have a look at the average check latency, which shows you whether or not your checks are made in time. Just some general metric which gives you an idea if your system is performing well. And
what's a typical value? I think if the latency is about 1 or 2 seconds, it's perfectly normal and cannot be optimized further, isn't it? Is it correct?
Yeah, it's okay. And everything below that is fine.
Yeah.
And if you're significantly above, you have a problem.
If you have 30 seconds or something, that means that, for example, you want to make 1 check a minute and you have a latency of 30 seconds, you actually do just 1 check every 90 seconds. So you're not running the actual configuration that you want. So that would be a problem.
Exactly. And then you can also have a look at the OMD performance services on your Chickenplay server. And now, what do we get from that? That's some example migration we see here. The migration we made here, or which was made here, was a single Chickenplay system involving multiple sites on a single server with a large number of services. And for this installation, we had nearly a reduction of roughly 50% in terms of memory usage. And other systems even had like 60% reduction in memory usage. So this is really a step change in performance.
And it was very hard to build. It was, I guess, from what I learned, it's very complicated to get everything right.
Yeah, absolutely. Not as easy as you think in the first moment. Yeah, it's working on the core part of the engine. Yeah?
I think the most complicated thing was the SNMP stuff, because with a normal Chickenplay agent, you simply make a TCP connection, wait for the data, get the response. So the helper just would need the IP address and the port number, and basically that's it. Yeah, but for the SNMP, you need all the OEDs, you need to work, you need the scanning and stuff like that.
I think that was not that hard.
Aha, okay. I guess it was the hardest part.
There were other challenges, absolutely.
Okay.
But we made it, and we had good results, and are pretty happy about that, because we can now, with the same hardware, monitor a lot more.
Yeah, even
systems.
more. I mean, Checkup was the best scaling monitoring system before that already.
It's the double best.
And now I'm really sure that we have left the others beyond by far when it comes to massive infrastructures with really many of us. Or if you want to have just a small VM and want to monitor and save resources. So
we are caring about efficiency.
Of course. Performance always matters. That's a very important rule.
So okay, let's now have a look at the next part of the talk. It's about predicting the future.
Which is impossible.
100% prediction is, okay. Whatever. What you want to do often is to capture metrics, and then based on these metrics, make some assumptions. And an important use case here is capacity planning. You want to know how many CPUs you need in the future at some time. You want to know when your memory is completely used, or when your file system needs to be upgraded. And based on the metrics Checkup is recording, we can give you an idea we can give you a forecast. And what we are doing is not simply extrapolating a line. We have built a mathematically model which helps you understanding the data, which helps you to get the periodicity of your data right, which factors the behavior of your systems in very well. The first version we built was in the 1.6. It was already available for you to use, but it was a little bit hard to set up because you had to download and install third-party libraries, which were not very easy to install.
And I think they were three times as big as the whole Checkmk systems. Wasn't it?
It was a bit strange. So we realized that it is not good for users and it's not the Checkmk way. And so what we did is that we replaced the third-party library with our own engine to make this computation. And now, once it is included in Checkmk, you as enterprise user can now use these graphs by navigating to any metric of your choice, and then open the forecast icon, click on the forecast icon next to that metric, which opens up a graph like you saw in the slide. And if you look at this, you can also change the underlying model a bit. There are parameters which you can tune to make it better fit your needs. And yeah, in terms of major changes I want to show you, that's it from a user perspective. From a developer perspective, from a Checkmk developer perspective, that's not yet everything. Because besides all these changes I just showed you, we also made some transition from a Python 2.7 project to Python 3.8. And with Checkmk, we have roughly 800,000 lines of code. And the graph you see here does not include the enterprise code, so we have a little more than we see here. But we made this transition during the 2.0 version. And we are pretty happy about this process because we can consider this as a huge success, simply from the fact that we have had a lot less trouble than we expected.
And it's still working.
It's mostly working, yeah.
Most people underestimate the fact that Python 2 and Python 3 are different languages. It's not just an updated version, it's a different languages because same things, syntactically, same structures have a different meaning. And that's, I think it was a mistake by designing Python 3, for example, to have the slash operator. Previously it was a integer division, now it's a implicit float cast. So you have exactly the same code and now it has a different meaning. Yeah. And I've never seen that in any of the other languages. And that makes it very hard to get rid of all the bugs because it's syntactically correct program and it even runs, but in some situations it would create wrong results, and that's really...
And that was just one of the challenges.
Yeah, it was just one of the challenges.
So it was a very time-intense project, and we had to be very careful because these changes were affecting nearly every line of Python code we have. Yeah. And so we had to nearly look at every line to get an idea how we need to deal with these lines, how we need to migrate them. But we made it, and after some month of having this version out, after some migrations of custom plugins out there and so on, we can be pretty happy about this result because it's working.
Do we have any information about the changed memory and CPU footprint of the Python 3 versus 2? Because the early Python 3 versions used more memory and more CPU, but I guess it changed to the better now? Yeah,
it has changed a lot. And the new Python versions like 3.8 and 3.10 will even improve it more. So,
so Python 3 in these days is faster and uses less memory than Python 2.
Yeah,
Very
they're
good, yeah.
doing a very much to improve the language and give it useful features, improve performance, and so on. So it's really worth it and needed to do this transition.
I think it was a perfect time for doing that for us,
Yeah,
because we were ready, we had all this testing infrastructure, and we had a benefit for the end user, because at the beginning, when Python 3 came out, I was against it, because the end user gets a product that uses more memory and is slower, and we cannot implement many other features because of all the work, so that would have been a bad time, I think. I think it was correct to do it now.
it was the best time we could do it.
Yeah, Python 3 is very mature now, so
Yeah,
congrats for your team
yeah,
that you made
absolutely. So, okay, that's it for the talk now. For the things you can have now in Checkmk. And yeah, tomorrow we will talk about the future. For the remaining day, we will have our fireside chat and talk about different interesting things.
And we have lots of questions here and
and
still
yeah,
some time
now-
for answering them.
That's
So-
right. Now we come to the questions.
Very good. So we have lots of questions, and I encourage you all to ask further questions in the Q&A. Once again, if you have popped in from YouTube, please switch over to conference.checkmk.com. You see the same stream, but you get a framework where you are able to have to answer questions and also take part of the official chat. And tomorrow we will make some polls, so you can take part of them. Conference.checkmk.com. It's free. Just switch over if you popped in via YouTube, and you can be part of the questions, because questions are always interesting for us. And I hope the answers for you. So, and we have a voting system in the questions, so someone asks something and others can say thumb up. I want to get this question answered. So I try to go in the direction of the most votes.
Now,
Some of the questions are not actually touching this session here, but I think it doesn't matter. We have enough time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk. Are there any news regarding SAML authentication?
SAML authentication, yes. There are. With the 2.0, we've added the fundamental library for making our web interface able to handle this authentication.
Can you drop a word? What's SAML all about? I know YAML, but I
No,
think it's
SAML
something
is something very different.
I'm really a bit
It's
outside in these things.
for supporting authentication integrations. With, for example, in enterprises, you have central authentication services like Azure AD or something like that, and SAML is a protocol to realize these.
Is it a replacement for things like Kerberos and LDAP, or is it,
some kind.
just
Some
okay.
kind. We have the Apache module modauth melon shipping with Checkmk, and based on that, we are working out a sample configuration how-to, which we want to integrate in our user manual.
So the situation is it can be done. We're just working
Yeah.
on the documentation
Yeah.
to make it
And-
easier for you to use.
And in the forum, you can find threads about it and about how to configure it, and it's already working for most of the features. And there are even users which are working on the Azure AD integration and proving that this is working.
Very good. Sounds very good. Next question. 49 votes. Are you working on Ansible modules for Checkmk?
We our own at the moment, we are not working on these integrations. We have on GitHub we have some repository published, which includes some kind of sample configuration for deploying. I think the agent with some automation tools, and there are also I think Ansible files.
There was something from a partner, wasn't it, or from?
It's
can you remember?
partially from a partner and partially from us directly.
Okay.
But we are currently not actively working on that. But this is also a question which comes over and over, and I think we will keep asking which of the automation tools should we address, which features do you want?
Maybe we can add this
To
to the
support.
voting tomorrow.
I think we have it in the Slack, I'm not sure.
Okay, perfect. So anyone listening here from our team, tomorrow make sure that we have a poll about this Ansible stuff.
And tomorrow we're also in the roadmap talk. We have questions about automations, and then you can also add your comments and so on.
Other topic, the mobile app. Are there any good news concerning the Checkmk mobile app?
The good news is we haven't thrown that in the trash, that idea.
I mean, we have a mobile version of the user interface, but it's not an app, and
it's not an app, and
what's the current state about that? Is it working?
It's working, but especially for the use case where you have some device somewhere in the internet, you don't want to normally publish your mobile web interface in the whole internet.
Also, it does not support push notifications.
That's
just for clearing the status.
Some customers are publishing this mobile interface via VPN, and if your phone is connected to a VPN, you have access to it. But for the use case of I have my phone and I want to take it out and just have it connected to the internet, it's not really a good solution. And it's a question which is often asked, and in the polls we also ask you for your opinions, what is really important for you. And from what I've seen in the morning, that there are already a lot of votes on this question.
Okay, I think if you make a cool restricted feature set that actually addresses the needs, for example, push notifications, acknowledge problems, get an overview of the state, something like that, I think you don't need to configure BI aggregations on this mobile app. That's what makes it complex and expensive to build it.
Yeah.
So.
The use case has to be pretty clear, at least for the start, and then we may maybe extend it.
Next question from Jan Niklas. Is it planned to get access to the inventory via the API? I mean, probably the REST API. Because there are already some APIs to the inventory, but...
We have existing APIs in which was not the official web API, but we have HTTP endpoints which you can use to access the inventory data.
Also right from the beginning, there were two APIs. The one is that, I'm not sure if it's still existing, once every time a host gets new inventory information, you can have a script triggered and process these. Is it still
some kind of hidden feature somewhere,
and
no one knows about
I like these hidden features.
But Web API, we still have the old one, and it's still working. And obviously, at some point, we will use the REST API to address this use case.
Okay, perfect. I mean, the complicated thing is probably get the typing right. If we consider the whole inventory information as a blob, it's simpler. That
has to be handled as a data structure which is not interpreted by the REST API.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so next question concerning network monitoring. Are there any specific efforts to integrate streaming telemetry which would have to push data to a Checkmk collector?
Yeah, this is some technology, a very new technology, which somehow aims to replace the traditional network monitoring protocols like SNMP. And you have the option to, like for SNMP, you have the option to poll information, you have the option to listen for information that you get sent by the network device. And I think that will be an interesting protocol for the future, and we are continuously monitoring developments in these areas. So I think this may be an interesting technology, but obviously there are a lot of developments out there, a lot of approaches by different vendors which try to establish their own ways of these standards, which try to solve the problems in slightly different ways. And streaming telemetry may be one of the protocols which really make it and which are widely adopted.
But is it something similar than NTOP provides, these net flows, or it's completely different?
No, I don't know all the details of this, but maybe it can somehow address even network detail monitoring, but I haven't seen that so far.
Okay, next question from Matthias. Matthias K, but with two T's, so it's probably not me asking here. Sometimes it's not so easy to find proper rules in the setup menu. you need to know the name to search for it. Is it planned to add the old 1.6 grouping like it was in host and service parameters?
The grouping and
I think we still have the grouping,
Yeah,
but
we
ripped it up, you know, in the previous Checkmk version. We had this order of everything by technical definition. So we have one global settings with all global settings. We have one rules with all rules. We move toward task-oriented grouping. So I want to do something, I want to configure the monitoring. There are global settings for it and rules for it and so on. So we have basically split up these rules, and they are found at different places in the setup menu. So these groups, the same groups still exist, but they are split up in the setup menu. So if you want to change the monitoring settings of services, you will find one entry in the main menu for that. And within that, you still find the old groups. So they are not vanished. It's just there's one global rule search, but the groups are still existing, just in a different place. So it's the main rule menu has split up into, I think, 5 to 10 topics of the new setup menu.
But maybe if a lot of users are interested in such an information, in some other structuring, maybe we could also ask for that in some polls about opinions. Maybe we can make it somehow customizable. I don't know.
Yeah. There's a question, is it planned to add an easy changelog or documentation for hosts? For example, WATO changes, setup changes, or service parameters?
Yes, this is something we extended with Checkmk 2.0.
So you want basically, I'm not sure if I got the question right, you want to see what, you pick out a host, what has changed in this host concerning the configuration.
I think it goes in the direction of the audit log we have in our setup. We have it for a long time in Checkmk, and with the 2.0, we added some more detailed information to it.
So we could in the host page in the setup, when you are at a specific host, we could add a link to get the audit log with respect to that host, maybe.
No, there is such a link.
Oh, there's such a link. Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so the answer is yes.
Yeah, so you can go to the host detail page, then open up the links Matthias just mentioned, and then it will go to the audit log of the setup, and then filter this audit log by all the entries which are related to this host. Okay. And it does not only show the entries it showed in versions before Checkmk 2.0, it also shows more details. What you can see now is the attributes that has changed. So if one user changed the IP address family host attribute, the alias or whatever of a host, that's saved with the change record in detail.
So I get that's very good. That's very good.
And that has been realized for the most important actions you have in the setup, and that can be extended to all other changes we're making to the configuration. We don't have these details in all areas of Checkmk.
But we are working on it to make it complete for everything from time to time.
Yeah.
Okay, so are there any known bugs you want to highlight? What's a bug actually?
Known bugs I want to highlight. Interesting.
There are no problems.
Interesting.
I mean, if there would be any important bug, it would already have been fixed. So all the bugs that are known and are not fixed yet are less prominent bugs.
Yeah, obviously after such a huge version step with huge changes of the whole code base, there are bugs. But according to our numbers we get from our crash reporting, for example, that's not a lot more than in previous releases. So what we see is that the Python 3 migration was not causing that much damage, and our quality assurance mechanisms like unit tests, linting, and so on are really helping them.
Yeah. So the question from me: did the jump to the 2.0 bring more bugs or less than the jump from the 1.4 to the 1.6?
1.4 to 1.6.
Didn't we have? Yeah, the jump to the 1.6. You know, when we released the 1.6.
I don't have the exact numbers, but
From your feeling, was it
from your-
greater pain or less pain now? The migration to 2.0.
until now it looks pretty good. Also,
Yeah.
even better than previous
That's
migrations.
my assumption also. It's
Yeah.
better, even if we had much more,
Yeah.
more and deeper changes.
Yeah.
So for me, this means that our whole automated testing and this build chain and everything is set up quite well now.
Yeah, and we especially took a lot more time than before in pre-release testing. This was very intense for our consultants also, which were
Yeah, we had more consulting
which
testing
were
ourselves.
working a lot on their own systems, which were working a lot with specific customers, which we previously migrated to testing versions and tried the migration over and over.
And also, many from you have helped us by taking active part in the beta phase and giving us feedback, sometimes even patches. So I want to thank you, your users, for going this way with us and taking the pain of using a beta version and helping us making it good. So
Yeah, thank you.
okay, so next question from Uwe. Are there changes with the integration from the Cmdb? I'm not sure which Cmdb is meant now.
If you want to connect your own CMDB,
Yeah.
you can now use the REST API. For
I mean,
doing this.
I probably, the question is
If-
probably meant like this. If you already have scripted a CMDB integration, what would you expect after the update?
That
Because
depend-
there's
yeah.
some integrations that use the actual configuration files directly, that write them.
Yeah. I think we in the past we had two approaches of building CMDB integrations. That was the one you mentioned, by directly writing Checkmk configuration files, and the other ones were using the web API.
Yeah.
And for the web API, we are still supporting it. So you will be able to use these integrations even with 2.0.
And the file creation.
And the file creations, these files which you would modify, the host MK files and so on, they have slightly changed.
So it's still doable, but you need to fix maybe the one or other.
I would recommend to have a look at the new file format and slightly adapt your integration.
Yeah, because sometimes it's not possible to write a complete new integration in a short time. So do you think it should be doable if I have integration on file-based to bring it to the new version and it still make it work?
Yeah, we have in the host MK files we have changed some smaller things, added some more constructs, changed the existing ones a little bit. So if you compare these files between 1.6 and 2.0, it's obvious what is different.
So our recommendation would be to move to the REST API in the future when you have time to make it, and for now you can fix your old file generation.
If you have to,
Be happy, okay. There's a question, when the certification is going to be released. I guess, do you know what kind of certification?
Of course, the certificate Checkmk Pro or something.
You mean
like
you're
that.
in this kind of certification?
Yeah, I think so.
We have planned this for years now, and I'm not really sure who can answer this question.
It would be pretty cool to have something like this.
Yeah, but it's hard to create one that's really good, that really reflects who knows Checkmk and not just learns brain dumps by heart. But I think we should give credit to those Checkmk users that use Checkmk already for years and really have experience. They should get the certificate, and not. This should be honored, I think, that you have practical experience, and make a test for that is possible, but not trivial.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's no time schedule right now for that. Where can I get one of those shiny, new, great Checkmk shirts?
Like this
I
one
like
or
your
this
one most. Here's one below this.
No, please. I think
everyone who has booked a package in the conference has get sent one of these.
And I think we were probably a bit late for sending them out. So,
Ah,
if you
so-
if you booked your packs, you should receive something like this.
Do we have the shirts in the shop somewhere? I mean, do we have set up our fan shop already?
No, I don't think so.
I think we should do.
But not for the conference shirts. These are collector
These
items.
are limited to the conference
Yeah, absolutely.
participants, of course. So we have still some time. So
Yeah.
here's the next question. With 17 votes, has the Meraki MX devices made the roadmap yet? What the hell is Meraki MX? I'd like to monitor the interfaces for bandwidth like I do with Cisco switches and routers now. However, Checkmk gets nothing useful via SNMP from Meraki MX devices. Quite a lot of people seem to have them.
Yeah, and we continuously receive questions about Meraki. And we've, I think it was in the last year, we have talked to different users of Meraki and speaking to them about APIs the platform is providing and about the information they need. And this ended up somewhere where we didn't continue this.
And do we have in our very long pipeline of check plugin tickets?
Yeah.
Is there somewhere in the pipeline there?
I don't know exactly. But what I would ask for is if you're interested in Meraki monitoring and you have an idea what you need and you may have an idea where to get the data from and how to get it and how you want to have it in Checkmk, then please contact us and help us building this.
Yeah, we need actually your help because we don't have such devices. We don't need how they work. We don't know what are the actual metrics that we should monitor, which is best practice and so on. So we always, all of these 2,000 plugins have been created together with you, maybe just a handful of Linux plugins we did ourselves because we are experts on this ourselves, but we need your help here to make it really good.
Yeah.
Any native Telegram, WhatsApp, and native integration on planning? I guess not monitoring it, but more notification via WhatsApp and Telegram. What's the current state?
Currently, we are not working on new notification integrations, but we continuously receive questions about that.
Yeah.
And not only the push part, where Checkmk sends out a notification to some kind of messenger or chat system, but also a deeper integration, where
like
you can respond to that notification somehow and get send an acknowledgement back from your phone. It could address some needs which some users are also thinking about mobile apps. Yeah, if you have the option to interact with your monitoring to some point, such an integration would be interesting. And in the moment we would build something like that, I think would not only tie this to a single of these messengers, we would build some generic approach which enables us to connect multiple messengers. But so far we don't have it on our specific roadmap.
So the next question from Daniel is, any news on anomaly detection?
Anomaly detection is something we will shortly talk about in the second part of the roadmap.
So tomorrow?
Tomorrow. But there's not something specific new in the current Checkmk version.
Sebastian asks, do you plan to deploy a Checkmk push agent? Example, Windows clients, laptops, PCs.
So we are really working on a push agent.
Just for a different reason.
But for a different reason, yeah.
It doesn't matter. It will work.
We will first focus on creating such an agent for Linux systems, but I think it will be also considered for other platforms like Windows and so on. The main reason for that is to support cloud monitoring use cases, but we will talk about that in detail tomorrow.
So I mean that the monitoring server itself is located in the cloud, and you don't want to have the cloud to have active access to your network, so you want to push the actual monitoring data.
That's the idea.
And the nice thing is Checkmk is very well suited for such a transport because the whole agent Checkmk communication is just one single text file being exchanged, which can very easily be pushed. In these, actually, you could script it yourself, when we already have done it in various customer projects where we even did monitoring via email for our demo server, which worked quite well at the
No,
end.
in production. We have productive systems which are using email as transport for monitoring information.
So, but we will create something that works out of the box, which is secure, fast, and easy, and which will, I think, maybe also useful for monitoring clients which are not always switched on.
Yeah.
There is a question. Is single sign-on working with Checkmk 2.0?
It depends on your type of single sign-on you want to have. There are also already for a longer time how you can configure a Kerberos integration. And we already talked about some integrations which you can do now with Checkmk 2.0.
But single sign-on already works for a decade now, doesn't it? With
Yeah,
Kerberos,
that's the Kerberos integration,
Yeah.
which you can configure based on existing how-tos.
So next question, 13 volts. So any plans to allow acknowledging notifications and or putting hosted services into downtime via email? We are back to the email.
Yeah, that's
For example, reply to an email notification or text.
Yeah, that's similar to the question about the messengers. If we had such a system which can get operating instructions and maybe forward them to the REST API or to the core, then we could also do this by email. But there are no specific plans.
I mean, it also would need some kind of SMTP infrastructure on the Chickenplay server, namely someone that receives emails from the outside.
No, you would use your normal mail server for this and have some inbox, some account which receives
we would
mails.
get the mails via via IMAP or POP or something. Yeah, makes sense. Is the forecasting in 2.0 working also in distributed setup now? Seems like a question from a Chickenplay expert who claims that it doesn't work.
No,
in 1.6.
I don't understand this. Yeah, it should work, absolutely. It fetches the metrics like...
So everything is
like
on the side, happening on the remote side.
Yeah.
Central side just displays the outcome.
Yeah.
So if it doesn't work...
maybe with the 1.6, you had the problem of installing these third-party libraries. And maybe if you just install it on one side, you cannot look at this in the other side. Maybe this was meant.
Maybe. Okay. So if you set it up in 2.0, it should work.
Yeah.
Next question. I think it's a question to Chris. There is no intermission music, but I think it's outdated, the question. Okay, so we still have 5 minutes, and we have a question from Timo. When I change a tag, label, or host name, is there any way to see the rules that are no longer matching, especially no longer matching active checks?
In the moment you change an existing tag or delete it, we validate or analyze the configuration, different parts of the configuration, and we are warning you about the fact that the tag is still used.
But I think it's not about, I'm not sure if it's about changing a tag in the tag definition of the tag group or on the host. I read it that way, that you change some host, remove some tags and so on, and you end up with some rules that don't match any host anymore.
Yeah, okay. So this is a feature I just mentioned in my talk. You have the tag analyzation page, which you can access from the tag management page.
Can we go back to that?
You can try. Will you find it?
Speak something.
That was
a joke for the audience. So
that was one line. One back. 1/4. There was no.
This one.
Yeah, that's
So
the
we don't
last
have-
line of this slide.
we don't have a screenshot. Okay.
Really not worth the switch, but
okay,
yeah.
we don't have a
There-
screenshot. This is
below-
the last line of this one, but I thought we have a screenshot in there.
No.
But there was this has been for a long time in Checkmk. The ineffective rules was it called? Is it the same? Or
Yeah, this is also a way to look at this. Yeah, if you specifically want to have a look at Checkmk rules, you still have the ineffective rules you can search for.
So
or you
it
can
shows
open.
me all of the rules that don't match for any of my objects. That
Yeah,
I
and not only based on the tag configuration, but also on the other
yeah,
conditions.
on any condition that a rule can have.
Yeah.
Okay, so next question. Will it be possible to use service tags in rules? Do we have service tags?
Yeah, there are service tags, but we're considering to drop these again.
I think
We-
I was against the service tags, wasn't I?
Yeah, at some point you were. I remember. They have been introduced before we invented the labels. And
yeah,
we have included this in the release with the idea of being consistent. We have
Yeah.
labels for hosts and services, and then let's also have tags for hosts and services.
So
And
they're
until
actually
now,
superseded.
the service tags, you can assign them, you can configure them, but they cannot be used
So they're
in your Checkup
pretty
configuration.
useless. You can use
They-
them as filters and views,
Yeah, there should be a filter, I think.
because for something they must be useful, because if you just apply them and don't use them.
I can see the chat now.
Okay, so then there's here something, ntop ng should be with a 10 host limit included, but it would lower the buy-in threshold. So I think it's a feature request that we should ship it with 10 hosts for free. But anyway, you need an ntop license for setting up ntop, don't you? Or what's the point?
Yeah, currently the ntop integration is included with the enterprise packages, but from a compliance point of view, you need to have an ntop package board
Yeah, okay.
to be allowed to use
You
it.
could try it out,
So-
but if you use it production,
Yeah.
you should license it. Okay. Will there be a public issue tracker for Chickenplay?
We once had issue tracking on the web page, and yeah, it was not maintained very well. Yeah, I think the current situation is that it was removed from the website because it was not really addressing the needs.
Yeah. it was-
And yeah, we have this discussion from time to time, and there's no specific plan at the moment.
Okay, so I'm going for one last question because we are almost ready for a break before a fireside chat. So, is the documentation for Checkmk 2 available or not yet? That's a good question. I think.
Yeah, there are different parts of documentation which are not really ready yet, but the most important parts you need to get started are, I think, ready to try out the new features we have built, to do the migration. These parts are all ready, but we have still some features left which are not fully documented.
Also, the case is that when we still had printed documentation, we dropped that because of environment reasons. It was about 1,200 pages and with thousands of screenshots. So when we switch over to 2.0, the navigation has changed. So basically every user interface you use has changed, but not the contents. So we decided that we cannot make a complete rewrite of the whole manual just in order to exchange the navigation. So many of the chapters still exist, still valid for the 2.0, just have a different look. So for the main things, we have updated the article or made new ones. Also, we had introduced a versioning. So there's a version 2 of the user manual and a version 1.6. But even in the new manual, some of the screenshots still look like 1.6 because basically it's happening the same. But we're working on it to get it up to date. We have, I think we have now 2 full-time writers already for the manual and stuff. So
We hope to be able
we
to
work
keep
on
up.
it.
Yeah.
Okay, so then I thank you
Yeah.
for this lesson, and
Thank you.
for foremost I thank you for taking part. And Chris, how many do we have in the stream right now? About 300 still. Okay,
On the
it's really
YouTube
very nice. So we make a short break of half an hour, and then I hope we see us again at our talk. It will be Lars and me and Jan and some guests. It will be right in the same stream, so you can simply let the stream run We will mute it, maybe make some music or make no intermission music. You will see the studio around a bit. And yeah, see you or see you tomorrow maybe.
See you later.
So, have a nice time.